What's going on YouTube? It's GadgetsBoy and GadgetsJon here today. How you doing? So finally we are doing our Huawei P20 Pro review, and this is going to be slightly different. And before we begin, if this is your first time on this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button as well. I'm not sure where it is, but somewhere there, so that you'd be one of the first people to know every time we upload a video on this channel. So moving on, so what we're going to do slightly different this time is there are bits and bobs of the phone that we've both used that we're going to talk about separately. So I'm going to talk about the design and the general aspect of the Huawei P20 Pro, and John is going to talk about the camera aspects because he's our resident photography person.
I like cameras, so yeah.
Exactly. So you'll be able to talk about it probably a bit more technical more than I could.
Okay.
So that would be great for our audience to know what that's all about. But without further ado, should we get on with it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's start with the design. So when it comes to the design, there's no doubt that the Huawei P20 Pro is a beautifully designed smartphone. So when we look at the back, the first thing you notice is the colors. So this color scheme is very nice. Bearing in mind this is the Twilight version, there's also a black version as well, which is different, but I prefer this version. So you got the purple top area and then kind of like fades in towards the bottom to this turquoise bluish kind of color. And every time you sort of like move it around, it shimmers against bright light or sunshine. It looks really nice. And on the back, we've got this camera bump, which is a triple camera Leica camera setup here. So we got your 40 megapixel lens, you got 20 megapixel, which is black and white, and you got 8 megapixel for that extra zoom. So this has got 3 times optical zoom and 5 times hybrid zoom. So you can still get a bit of extra detail when you're zooming into your subject. Elsewhere, you got this nice metal banding all around the edges as well, all around around the device itself. And then on the bottom, obviously there's no 3.5mm headphone jack, but we've got USB Type-C charging port there. Again, with the fast charge that comes in a box, you'll be able to charge this from 0 to 100% in an hour and 24 minutes, 27 minutes each, which it's really nice to have. There's no wireless charging here. This is IP67 water and dust resistant, so you'll be able to dip in water, 1 meter of water for up to 30 minutes. I haven't fully tried it out for that long, but I've been using it in the rain and it still works absolutely fine. On the front, we've got full HD display and you got the notch right at the top. Yes or no, notch is not for everyone, but it's here to stay, so we might as well get over it and get on with it. So what Huawei have done here, which I believe they're the first people to do it, is you got notch blocker, so you'll be able to get rid of that area if you really want to do. But what I've noticed is over time I've just gotten used to it. It stopped bothering me. It still doesn't give them an excuse to have it there, but it stopped bothering me and I haven't actually turned it off, which is quite funny. On the top you got IR blaster, which again, they're still one of the still one of the few manufacturers out there with IR blaster there for remote control if you want to control stuff using your phone. You got home button there, which you can also program to do different gestures, like slide into the left to review what's run in the background. You can tap it to go back or press and hold to completely go back to home screen. You got EMUI operating system there, which is just Android overlay. It works really well, but you still get a couple of bloatware on there, which is just typical Huawei style, but you can remove some of them, not all of them. Again, the screen looks okay. I think the brightness could do with some work. It's not the brightest, so when using it in bright sunlight, sometimes you can't really see, you struggle to see it, but it still looks fantastic when playing games, when watching videos, and so on. Otherwise, overall feels nice. I would say it looks expensive, but doesn't feel expensive. What I've been doing lately is doing my little hollow test. So when you knock it there, it feels quite hollow. I don't know why that is, even though it's a glass back. But yeah, again, that's something that's probably nitpicking, probably a preference thing, but I hate that. For performance, we have Huawei's own proprietary processor in there. So we've got a Kirin 970 processor, which is also what we've seen in the Huawei Mate 10 Pro, which means we expected the same level of performance that we've seen before. What I really like is the utilization of or implementation of AI in this system here. So again, AI is not something that you can really see, but you can feel it in action, because since the day when I've had this, it still performs exactly the same way as how I took it out of the box. And also my Mate 10 Pro, exactly the same thing. The AI system there doesn't just go that far though, it also applies to the camera system, which again, John will talk about when we get to the camera area of this review. In terms of everything else in there, you got 6 gig of RAM, you got 128 gig of internal storage, which you can't expand unfortunately, but you get a dual SIM setup in exchange for that. It also, with that, it means that everything runs really smoothly when you're scrolling through apps, when you're opening and closing applications, like when I go on Chrome to browse the web, it just opens very instantaneously, which is something that I really appreciate. You also see that trickle down to even your fingerprint sensor when you're unlocking your phone using your fingerprint or face using your face as well. It just really opens up. One thing that I really like that I should mention actually when it comes to the unlocking feature, you don't even have to really press the home button before you realize the power button before you realize that it's already unlocked the phone. That's how quick this thing is. So again, with the fingerprint one, we've seen that with the Mate 10 Pro. So that's just trickled down to this. So it works amazingly well. And for battery performance, this thing is hands down probably the best on the market right now. This thing lasts me 2 days. I actually struggle to actually try and run it flat. It's become like a game. It's become a challenge to try and run it flat completely, even though I use it for everything like Instagram, emails, phone calls, you name it. This is everything that I do on there, even gaming. So this has got a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. AI is also used in this area again to allow you to use applications very intelligently. So battery is used or utilized in a way that applications are not draining your battery on the go. This is something that's very important. Not many manufacturers do it. What you find with the likes of, like say, the S9 Plus is you get it the day one that you get it, it runs really smoothly, battery life is good, and then over time it kind of deteriorates. But with this one, using AI and all kind of like software wizardry in here, it just works really well and it lasts for so long. I've never seen anything like that before on a smartphone. And it's actually quite incredible that they've actually managed to do that with a slim device and not compromise on battery, which is something that other manufacturers can take note there as well. In terms of audio as well, so when you're watching YouTube videos, make sure you're watching GadgetsBoy. If you're listening to music, let's talk about that headphone, because I've got a problem with that. So the headphone that comes in a box and not the best, they're actually really cheap, which I find in this day and age, 2018, every manufacturer should have a decent pair of headphones in the box. Like the Samsung one, they've got the AKG in there, which works fantastically well. But besides that, on the bottom then, though, before, this is not a dual speaker setup here. Actually, one of them is quite fake. It's a bit like having a fake exhaust on a car. But it's still quite loud. It's still quite loud. One thing I've had to do is just buy a new pair of headphones, in order to enjoy my audio. But apart from that, decent performance, but nothing to write home about. More on that display there as well. It's not as sharp as what we find on the S9 Plus, even in terms of pixel density. So this is rocking 408 ppi. It's only like a full HD display. So again, it's not the best when it comes to brightness, colors, sharpness, and so on. The only time it looks really vibrant though is when you bring it back to that home screen and you put a nice colorful wallpaper on there, then it looks really nice. But as soon as you bring out the S9 Plus and you compare it, nah. But then again, S9 Plus has got the knack for that really nice, vibrant, bright Super AMOLED display. But I hope that next time Huawei to step up their game in that area as well, so we get a better display, which is much sharper and nice in different viewing angles and using in different sort of light conditions. Let's not forget gamers as well. So this phone, I wouldn't say is the best for gamers. It's running 12 core for GPU compared to say 16 cores that we've got in the Samsung S9 Plus, for example. But it still does the job. You can still play Candy Crush, you can still play Fortnite on there. It works absolutely fine. There's no lag thanks to the 6 gig RAM that kind of supports it a little bit, and the AI helping it to know that you're in gaming mode, to give you the extra performance that you need for gaming. So that's still there, but it's still not up there when compared to the other flagship devices out there today. Onto the camera though, let's get John in the seat to talk to you about the camera performance of the Huawei P20 Pro.
So my favorite bit about any phone review is the camera, obviously, because I'm a camera guy. I mean, as a photographer and video guy for a number of years, I want to see what the camera's saying. So let's talk about how the P20 Pro performs. So as Tommy said earlier, this has a 3-camera setup. Huawei call it the triple camera, or C-more with the 3 O's in it. As Tommy mentioned, the P20 Pro has a triple camera setup. Means you have a 40 megapixel, 27mm equivalent sensor in there, which allows you to get your wide angles at very high resolution. It has a 20 megapixel monochrome sensor, which gives you all of that detail, nice rich detail reproduction in highlights and shadows. And it has an 8 megapixel sensor with an 80mm equivalent focal length lens, which gives you that zoom. So I think the P20 Pro completely leads the way in terms of zoom. It's what I said the S9 should have done, but you get 3 times optical zoom with this phone, when you don't get anything like that with the others. I think they all give you 2 times zoom, and then you get a 5 times hybrid zoom with the P20 Pro, which again is something you don't get with any of the others. And they use that 40 megapixel sensor to crop in to give you that extra detail at longer focal length. So I think it's a really impressive and a smart way to get people closer to the action that they want. And in terms of the quality of the pictures, I'd say looking at them, they do capture an amazing amount of detail, but for me, it's a touch over sharpened in some scenarios. versus the S9 or the iPhone X or the Google Pixel 2 XL, which I think still for me takes the best natural shots out of any phone. But the detail reproduction in low light, the P20 Pro is day and night way better than anything else that any of the other guys are doing. And they do this because they have a night mode that is effectively HDR, but it uses that smart AI that Tommy mentioned to analyze the scene, really break down what's in the scene, what's moving, and it'll take a series of shots, I think it's up to 10, and they combine it down into one image, and it picks out all of the details in the highlights and the shadows, the colors. One of the best things about that night mode is it allows you to take low light shots without the aid of a tripod or any kind of stability. Handheld, you can take shots as low as 4 seconds handheld without any shake in the image, which is really, really impressive. I think that's something that Huawei is really leading the way in terms of what low light capabilities you can get from a smartphone camera. And in terms of video, it's great in HD, but one of the things that we've criticized, and I think one of our friends, the Tech Chap, has criticized, and actually Superstar said the same thing. In 4K, there's no optical image stabilization, which is really disappointing. There's not even electronic image stabilization. So when you're shooting 4K video and you're on the move, you're going to get that kind of shake and judder that you wouldn't normally get if you were shooting with, say, the S9 Plus, which does have optical image stabilization during 4K video. And I really, really like that on that phone. But in HD, the P20 Pro will give you really smooth video, especially if you're walking or even jogging. You won't get up and down motion with that. So I think if I was going to give it a score for camera, I'd probably say it's probably a 9 out of 10. There's always room for improvement. But in terms of stills performance, this is, and if you're a photographer and as you can see, the way they've even designed it is with the camera in mind. And I think if you're somebody who likes to take pictures a lot, the P20 Pro is one of the strongest options you can look at. The only phones that are better, or even on a par, are the S9 Plus and the Google Pixel 2 XL at the moment. There may be some other stuff coming out very soon that you guys will see that has cameras that could rival this, but yeah, at the moment, P20 Pro with that Leica glass and that Leica camera development inside there is definitely really up there in terms of the camera performance. If you're a fan of super slow motion, I have started a new Instagram channel called Smartphone Slow-Mo, so check that out for all the samples that we're getting from all of the new phones that do have slow motion, which does include the P20 Pro. In terms of slow-mo capabilities, you get 120 frames per second at full HD, and in HD you get 960 and 240 frames per second. So it's not the best in terms of slow motion capabilities, but it does offer some good features if you are into that kind of content. In terms of the front-facing camera, the Huawei P20 Pro is, again, really leading the way in terms of innovation. It offers you a 24 megapixel front-facing camera, and it uses that AI to detect the scene, so it can, if you're backlit, it can highlight your face and really pick out facial details. One of the things that I have seen criticized though is that Huawei's AI does lean a bit towards too heavily on smoothing facial features, and especially if you've got very, very fair skin, it can make people look a bit washed out. So again, it's not perfect, but in terms of resolution, it's crazy. And in low light, the front-facing camera is much better than anything else any of the other manufacturers are doing at the moment. One of the other cool things about the AI that Huawei introduced in the P20 Pro, actually they did the same thing in the Mate 10 Pro, so that's technically a lie. But yeah, one of the other cool things about the AI is that it can detect the scene. So if you point your camera at the food, or at a drink, or at the sky, or at a group of people, or at a scene, the phone can analyze the scene, detect what's in the picture, and change the settings to help you get the best out of that image. And I think that's another cool way of using AI to help users get more out of their phone without having to be too technical. And let's not forget the younger brother to the P20 Pro, the P20, but I'm gonna hand you back to Tommy to talk all about that.
Thanks for that, John. So that's a great camera roundup. Hope you guys like that. Let us know what you think about the camera in the comments. But also there's a P20 and the P20, or actually the Porsche Mate RS. I like to call it the P20 Pro. See what I did there? Anyway, so that one's more or less the same as the P20 Pro, just a different design and a collaboration with Porsche design and a fingerprint sensor on the front. There's a video on that, which I'll leave a link to in the description, so do check that out. So we'll dump that out for a sec. But for now, we've got the P20 here as well. So if you notice, there's one less camera on the P20. So we've only got a 12 megapixel RGB sensor there and a 20 megapixel black and white sensor there as well. So it means you still get great shots, great shot out and about if you really would need to. You still got that glass front and back, nice color in pink as well. The battery is slightly less than this at 3,400 milliamp hour, I believe this one is. Also, size difference wise, not so much noticeable. So they're very similar in so many ways. The quality of the screen as well is very similar. I'm trying to think of what else I can tell you about the similarity. Pricing difference, this is more expensive compared to that one, obviously. So you're getting more for your money on the P20 Pro. It gives you a reason to actually buy it. And in terms of processor and operating system, exactly the same thing. The memory is slightly lower on the P20. So you only get 4 gig of RAM on here, but you still get that 128 gig of storage. So you still get that going on. So again, not much of a difference between both. It's just a question of, do you want that extra zoom capability of the P20 Pro and the Twilight color option? Or do you just want to go for the younger brother and save yourself some money? Because this is about $799 and this is around £550, I believe. And that's a big price gap for just extra zoom and a couple of extras like battery life and so on. But let us know what you think. Would you go for the P20 or the P20 Pro? Personally, go hard or go home. I'll go P20 Pro every time. So, John.
Yes.
Give me your conclusion. What do you think about the phone in general? You've been using the same time as me.
I think Huawei have done an amazing job, even going back to the Mate 10 Pro, to steal market share. They really, I think, they could have sat back and thought, leave the market to Apple and Samsung. They're the high-end smartphone makers, and gone the honor route and tried to tackle all the lower end. Mm-hmm. I think they've been bold and they've made phones that are really pushing boundaries for what phones can do. And I think in an age where all phones seem to be very, very similar, there's not much going on. I really like the way that companies like Huawei and OnePlus and Nokia even are starting to continuing to innovate and push boundaries. So I think they've done a great job with this. I love the Mate 10 Pro. This is built on it in some ways. It's got a much better camera than the Mate 10 Pro did, and I love the camera on the Mate 10 Pro. So yeah, I think they've done a good job.
Cool. I think for me, the phone durability is something I question, just because
I wouldn't want to drop it.
Smudges very easily. I've already scratched the back. You might not be able to see, just like tiny little hairpin scratches going on around there, which is something that I would love for that to be more durable. But again, in this day and age, when you compare it to iPhone 10, Galaxy S9 Plus, it's just same durability.
They're all very vulnerable.
They're very vulnerable. That's the exact word I would have used there actually. Everywhere else, great camera. I think 3.5mm f1 jack. Again, I wish they kept to that. There's absolutely no reason not to keep it there.
But you mentioned something I love.
What's that?
They still have an IR blaster.
IR blaster.
And that is one of my favourite things. And there's no reason not to have it because it doesn't take up much space. It can't be expensive to include. So I mean, okay, hundreds of users may say it's not great and they don't need it. But if it's there and you don't use it, it's not a big deal. But if it's there and you're someone like me who does use it, it's a really big help. Yeah. And I never know where my remote is. So
that's right.
This is amazing.
And I also like the dual SIM setup. That's really great for you if you travel a lot. Easy for you to put extra SIM in there without having to change your number, essentially. And then I think all in all, when you compare it to top smartphones out there today, like the iPhone 10 and the Galaxy S9 Plus, I would definitely say I would put this in the third place, just because in a world where the S9 Plus costs £900 to buy, the iPhone costs just over £1,000 to buy. This is something you would opt for and still get the same level of premium quality.
And it looks nice.
And it looks nice.
Like, people have stopped me in the street asking what phone it is, because I think it does attract attention, even the triple camera setup.
That's right.
People will ask what type of phone it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cool thing. If you're somebody who likes to, spending £700, you want to show off a little bit. Otherwise, why would you spend £700?
And I think that's reasonably priced. And night shots, night photography, hands down, this is the best.
Yeah,
you have to use night mode though. That's the only caveat. Without that, it's just not as good as the S9 Plus.
No.
And it's got Pro mode as well, and you can save in RAW format for you photographers out there.
Yeah.
But
I forgot to mention that.
Yes. Anyway, guys, do let us know what you think in the comments below, and what do you think of the review as well. If you'd like to have something more like this, let's get on with it. Let's ask for more. In the meantime, I'm Tommy. This is John. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell button as well, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks for watching.